Views and opinions expressed in this episode of the Psychic Chat Show are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Gareth Lewis and the Psychic Chat Show podcast. Any content provided by our guests are of their opinion and not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organisation, company, individual, or anyone or anything. Welcome to the Psychic Show podcast with me, Gareth Lewis. This week I have with me a young up-and-coming medium from the UK, David Hale. David has been working as a medium for only a few years, but has already written a book. David is going to talk to us today about his journey into mediumship and what it was like to be brought up as a Catholic, and then change his beliefs to spiritualism. So let me introduce to you David Hale. Okay, so welcome, David, and it's great to have you today on the Psychic Chat Show. And I know we're going to be talking about how you became from being a Catholic religion to venturing into spiritualism and mediumship. So, as I say, you know, it's fantastic to have you with us, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
No problem. We'll see where we go, and I'm sure everybody will enjoy it. So, as I started off there, you was brought up as a Catholic, I believe, and you went to church on a regular basis. Your family was Catholic. So, how did that make you feel at the time? Was it just that's what you was told to do? Did you feel comfortable when you went to church? What was it like when you? I know you was only young at that particular age, but you know. So, how did that feel then?
It was just the thing to do, I guess, because my grandparents were very strictly Irish Catholic, so it's very much it was the thing to do. I went to a Catholic school, and you kind of just go along with it. And to be perfectly honest, I never enjoyed it. Again, because it's just part of the church, I had to go and do it anyway. But I never went because I wanted to go. I don't remember ever saying to my parents, "No, I want to go to church today." But I never went to Sunday school, anything like that. And when I was at church, I just found it a little bit boring. That might sound controversial, right? But it was for me. And it's like, why am I sat here? Who am I talking to? What are we doing? So it never really, I never really felt it. I never really connected to it, if that makes sense. But again, because of everyone on that side of the family, mum's side of the family were all Catholic and Irish Catholics, you kind of had to do it. You didn't have a choice. And I guess as a kid, you kind of go with it anyway, don't you?
Yeah, so if I just jump in there, it wasn't necessarily school because not a lot of kids, you know, engage with school, you know, so it wasn't just that, it was actually what you was being taught, what didn't feel right for you, as far as the actual just maths and English. It was actually the religious side, what you didn't engage with.
Yeah, and it's even because I went to Catholic school, you had to go to church anyway because it's part of the, you have RE one day, so I'm going to go to church. But I was also happened to go to church on a Sunday, or the Christmases, the Easters, and I I don't ever remember looking forward to it, to be honest. It was more, oh god, we've got to go now. But you had to be dragged along because Nan and Granddad's going, so we've got to go. We've got, and you're still in Catholic school. We don't go to church. We're kicked out, kind of thing. So you had to go.
You know, it's fair enough because, like I've said before, and I'll say it again. You know, everybody's got a faith and a belief. You know, and if that makes you feel comfortable, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's when I think that sometimes this might be a bit controversial, David. I don't know what you think, but when something doesn't feel right to you, and you felt like you have to do it, that must be really, not nice to go through, really, because I suppose at some point, even though you probably didn't know about spiritualism at the time, but I presume you felt different in your beliefs. So going on to that, it's like, well, did you have early experiences of spirit? Did you know there was something more than, what we call the normal?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I just never, I always felt different anyway, whether that was from my sexuality point of view or whatever that might be. But I just never bought into kind of the Catholic ways or ideas. And I don't know why. And I think I always found other things more interesting. When I went to the church, I never felt inspired by the priest. I had all the Holy Communion, all that stuff, but I never went to be inspired. I never felt I don't remember feeling inspired either. But I always remember just being fascinated with things like the paranormal. And I don't know, I can't explain why. It's almost one of those things, you're drawn to certain things and some things you're not drawn to. And for me, just, yeah, I never bought into it. I didn't necessarily believe what they said. I only went again because I had to, but I always felt different. Like, and even if I look back at my life, I've done I've done things completely different to everybody else, you know. So I kind of just, and luckily, you know, saying that my mum was never a devout Catholic. I mean, my mum doesn't go to church now, and so she never pushed us to go, but it was more because of the family background, you had to go. So I was lucky that she was quite open, and I got to at a certain age where she said, do you know what, you're old enough to go and find things to believe or choose things you want to believe in, rather than, because she didn't particularly want to go to church herself. So
So you were her excuse not to go.
that's like, yeah.
You know what? It's good that you had. I can only presume from what you're saying that a supportive parent or
Yeah,
parents,
yeah,
you know, at the time, to be able to accept you and your beliefs and your feelings, you know, because
yeah,
it is a shame sometimes. You hear stories where people are actually pushed even up until an adult, they feel like they're
yeah,
obliged to follow, you know. So that's good.
yeah.
So just going back a little bit there as well. So in those early years, were you actually aware of spirit? Were you actually communicating with them, or was it an imaginary friend? You know, so did you have experiences when you was younger of the spirit world?
Not that I remember. I remember having a lot of psychic experiences, but again, I didn't realize at the time they were. I was just picking up on energy of people and think I don't like that particular person. Or, but I was very shy as a child. I wouldn't say boo to a goose, right? So, but I do remember being told, and this was only recently, actually, in the past couple of years. My mum, my aunt told me, oh, as a baby, when you used to go and visit your grandparents, when your granddad used to pick you up, I used to talk to the wallpaper behind him. And I've actually got a photograph somewhere of that wallpaper I used to talk to. And I was like 18 months old. So I obviously put it down to baby babble because, you know, no one talked about mediums or anything in the family. So I just thought, oh, baby babble. Then when you look back later, you kind of go, actually, maybe he wasn't talking. It wasn't just baby babble. Maybe he was talking something he couldn't see. But of course, I don't remember that. Um, so yeah, I don't remember seeing spirit, but I just remember picking up into situations or circumstances, or just looking at people and thinking, not too sure about you, and I ended up being right. But I didn't put it down to um, anything psychic because I didn't know anything about it. And as you said before, I wasn't aware of spirituality at that particular point. I just remember I might be sat at school in class and I'll see people in my head, and I put it down to I must be tired or maybe a bit stressed or not quite enjoying this lesson because I've completely zoned out somewhere else. But again, because it wasn't talked about in the family, you kind of go, maybe it's just normal because maybe everyone else can do it, and I'm just not speaking the fact that I can do it. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, you know, it's quite interesting, really, that um, you weren't allowed to explore that. And I've been quite lucky where, you know, it's always been part of my life as far as my family and the understanding of it. And I was talking to Karen from Germany, who has been in one of the previous episodes with us. And she was talking about not being able to express her, you know,
Yeah,
feelings, her situations, her experiences, because again, in Germany, it was completely different to how it
yeah.
is in the UK. So what kind of then took you? I know you was around about early teens, mid-teens, something like that, when I think, if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong, where you kind of said, okay, I'm going to pull away from the
Yeah,
religion I was brought up with. Where
yeah.
did you go then? Did you go just on to like an atheist? Did you go on to a not knowing anything, or was it just you just got on with your life?
Yeah, it's the age of 14. That's when my mum had that conversation with me where she said, you know, you can go, you're old enough to choose what to believe in. And it was around that time that I discovered what I knew then to be the paranormal. So I used to watch like Most Haunted, never miss an episode. I was like avid watcher of that. But it's when I discovered then all the great mediums that were on TV. You have like the late Colin Fry and the late Derek Acora, you have the Tony Stockwells, you have the John Edwards and all those kind of programs. And I watched it. I don't really know what my religion was back then because I just stopped going to church, but I still had that Catholic background. So as a kid, you always say, oh dear God, help me pass this exam, or get me through this, but you don't actually consciously go, I'm saying it because I believe in it. It was just more a thing you did, right? So I didn't really know what I was, to be honest. That kind of limbo thing. I didn't know what spirituality was because I never heard about it. I knew what the paranormal was, but I didn't ever link the two. So I kind of just got on with things, and I just enjoyed watching those kind of programs. I then started going to psychic fairs, having readings done, and seeing the vibe of it. And I had mediums and psychics would tell me, "You've got this ability," and I'd be like, oh, thanks. I'd leave the session, never thinking about it, right? Other people would say to me, David, you read people really well. Not as in reading the cards, but I could suss people out. I'm like, oh, can I? Again, because I didn't understand it. So I just kind of got on with life, never thinking I was psychic or medium, because it's just how I was. So I didn't really know what religion I was, to be perfectly honest. And then, yeah, as you say, when I got to my kind of mid-20s, I didn't do anything with it. I kind of stopped going to psychic fairs. I still watched The Most Haunted, but I stopped doing anything remotely psychic or spiritual just because life took me on a different path, which kind of steered me away from the psychic or mediumship world or spiritual world, whatever you want to call it.
So do you think, because I'm a great believer that when spirit wants you or needs you to work for them,
Yeah,
they'll just pull you back. And it's interesting for you to say that, okay, you never had any real experiences. It doesn't mean you're not mediumistic or you're very psychic intuitive. You've
yeah,
always known that. But I do believe that spirit sometimes will step away and allow you to not only find and rediscover and discover yourself,
yeah,
but also just to have your life, you know,
absolutely.
because when
Yeah,
we do this, I don't know if you agree, but when we do this, and we do it on a professional level, like I've been doing for many years and many people have, sometimes I won't say it can consume your life, you
mm-hmm.
know, but it depends how far you take it. It's like myself, I go on tour, and most of the year is either away from home or traveling on the road a lot, and it consumes. So you've got to have that balance
Yeah,
of knowing. So, okay, so you've kind of like, you've lived a bit of a life, and, you've found out who David is. I know we're not going to go into it, but I know you found your sexuality, and I'm going to say you may have been more comfortable with your life
yeah,
when
absolutely.
it kind of came back in again. So would you
Yeah,
agree that spirit said, okay, we're ready now, David's ready now, you know? So when that kind of rediscovery of watching the television programs and getting on with your life and having fun and what have you, what was the point then where, let's just say, it came back into your life where you thought, hang on a minute, this is who I'm meant to be, and this is where I'm meant to be going?
yeah. I was quite a bit later in life. So I was 35. So it's 2017. And I think you're right. At that particular point, I think my life had settled down because I'd lived a life. And I agree, I think Phil, to do this work, you have to have lived a life to gain those life experiences that when you are reading for other people, you can connect with them on an empathic level, sympathetic level, just an experience level. So I think 2 years before that, I just moved to London. So I was in a new city. I didn't move with anyone, I moved by myself to London. And I guess it was just spirit. I'm a great believer, yeah, as you say, spirit. I take all my inspiration from spirit, right? So I've learned over those years, not always the easy way, but learned that I feel things, I get told things for a reason. And I don't know why, but I was on my bed one day and I just put YouTube on, and I found a program. So the Long Island medium with Teresa Caputo, right? Don't know who she was. So I watched her, and something triggered me to go, maybe I can do this, because I've had lots of readings in the past and I can see how much she helps people. So in my mind, I was going, well, I've been told in the past I can do it. Don't know if I can, but if I can help people like she's helping people, how these mediums have helped me in the past, maybe I should start looking into it. So then I just started doing my research online, and I called a psychic hotline. Not always the best thing to do, I guess, but I was a bit lost in life at that point as well. But like, what am I doing? I'm here in London. I have a good job, but what am I doing? And the first thing the psychic said to me is, "You are psychic." Now, you might say they said it to everyone, right? But it hit something in my soul that there's a truth in it. And she told me things that no one else in the world would ever know. And that's kind of the spur, that moment to go, I'll give you a kick at the backside and listen to what you're being told and do it. And that's how it happened, really. It's kind of, as you say, just being drawn back into it. I don't know why or what, but I guess spirit had other plans for me, right? I'd lived that life and experienced those things, and it was time to draw me back in and go, right, now you're settled, pay attention and do it. So that's basically a kick at the backside by spirit, I guess.
So did you go along and did you develop your mediumship? Did you have a mentor? Did you go to the church, or did you just do it yourself?
All of the above. So I started off, I had a mentor called Sally, but she was more of a psychic rather than a medium. So my beginnings really started off more psychically, and it ended up becoming mediumship. So I had a mentor called Sally for a while. And at the same time, I was doing my own research. So I was learning about things like the chakras and grounding protection and how to open yourself up and meditation, because that was a hard thing to do as well. And then I found, about 5 months later, I found a spiritualist church, and then joined the circle. So I've done the circle development as well. I'm part of the committee of the church as well now. So obviously, as you know, it's ever evolving and ever learning. So I'm still on that journey, I guess. So yeah, so I've done all of it. So it's self-taught, meet a mentor,
So you
church.
turn around and say it's very much of a roller coaster, kind of.
Yeah,
You woke up one day and you got on this pathway and started this journey, and it then
yeah.
just like went from one to another quite
Yeah,
quickly.
I just went with where I was being drawn, really, and that's what I've learned to pay attention to. If I'm feeling I'm meant to do something, I'll follow that and I'll do it. If I'm told no, it's not the right time to do that, then I'm not going to do it. So I just very much pay attention to those, as I say, upstairs, as I say, and just followed that, and bits have unfolded as time has gone on.
You talk a lot about, especially in your earlier years, and you've openly admitted just a second ago, about working more psychically,
Yeah,
and then your first mentor, if you want to call that, and helped you discover that, and you said that was more of a psychic. So just so you can explain as well to everybody listening, what is the difference then, would you think, and what's your view on the difference between the psychic, and then you then think, hang on a minute, I'm going further now. Now I'm looking mediumistically. So you must have felt that difference. You must have known the difference.
yeah.
So what is the difference between psychic and mediumship? Oh,
So with me, and I'm quite, not a stickler, maybe that's the wrong word, but when I talk to people, I'm very clear about what psychic and medium is, because I know, a lot of people are put under the banner of psychic, but actually you're a medium. So psychic for me is just working with a living person. So it's about energy. You're connecting with the energy of a living person, looking at their past, present, or future, or just connecting with like universal energy, having information come down about different issues, topics, or situations, or whatever. So it's not really a spiritual thing. That's more, you're working with energy, right? Living energy of a person. Whereas I knew that mediumship was about, you are connecting with people that have passed over, and the job of a medium is to provide the evidence of survival that our loved ones do go on in another world, whether you want to call it paradise, spirit world, next dimension, whatever it might be. So I'm always kind of when I talk to people and educate them, that's the difference. And I don't personally do a lot of psychic work. I don't do future readings. I'm not Nostradamus. Do you know what I mean? I leave that to him. I prefer working mediumistically because I like channeling or bringing through information from the spirit world. So that, for me, is the difference between the two.
but you, you'd agree with me that when we work as a medium, and I'm sure you know this as well, but just the people out there who don't know the difference, because even when I'm teaching, and I'm teaching people who call themselves advanced mediums, uh, and it's not that I'm better than anybody else, but even they struggle with the difference between psychic and mediumistic,
Yeah,
mediumistically. And sometimes they turn around and say, well, I don't know when I'm working psychic, or mediums turn around and say, I never work psychically. Now, I know,
Medium.
under my own views and my own opinions and my own discovery of the mechanics of mediumship, we have to use all the faculties when we
Yeah,
work as a medium. We have to use all the faculties, whether it be clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience,
yeah,
cognitive, or even, and more so, the psychic. It's just knowing when you take to that energy,
mm,
and you're now stepping away from the energy of the spirit world, and you're, like you said rightly so, you're stepping into the energy of the person you're sitting for.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but then it then becomes about being honest. Do you agree? You
Completely.
know, and turning around and
Yeah,
saying, "Your mum's not telling me this, but now as I work with you, I know that this is going on around you, and your mum just wishes me to allow you to know that." So
yeah.
that's just me explaining as well for the people. I'm not saying you don't know that. I'm saying
You
just for
know,
people know that when
yeah,
a medium does work, it isn't just with the spirit world. You know, they're allowed to incorporate the psychic into it as well. You know, so that's why I ask you, you know, what is the difference? Just because when we do these and talk about things, people say, what does that mean? What does that mean? And you know, so many mediums still don't know the difference, you know,
yeah,
of working between the two energies. Uh,
yeah. And it's, I'll
of
say all psychic, no, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. I will always remember that, and that's in my head as well.
Yeah, that's one thing I was always taught as well, and it's true. You know, it's very true, and as long as that person's admitting where they get the information from and being
Completely.
honest,
Hmm.
that's all we can do and all we can hope for. So,
Absolutely.
as I say, we've already said, you know, your journey's taken a massive kind of turn. Do you still I know we've discussed the Catholic views, and you know we've gone through all that. I'm not going to repeat all that kind of thing, but do you still have or find yourself? And the only reason I ask you is because again, I've spoken to someone, and speaking to Hazel, and some people might have watched the episode where I was talking to Hazel, and she still got that belief in her religion,
Mm.
where she was Our Lady, you know,
Okay.
and turn
Yeah.
around to say, well, how can you wear that and be a spiritualist medium or be a spiritualist? And it's
Yeah.
kind of, why can't I have two beliefs? Do you know?
Absolutely.
So do you still have aspects of your life where I know you say, but do you still abide by certain things that you were brought up to be? Do you understand what I mean? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
do you still try and live by that side of your life as well as incorporating this side of your life?
Um,
Or is the Catholic side completely gone?
well, I was thinking about this, and I think subconsciously, I think there's still a part of me which I'll always have that foundation. I don't think you could ever take that away, but I don't really think consciously that I feel is Catholic or Christian. I mean, ultimately, I want to be a good person, right? And whether you put that down to Catholicism or spirituality or whatever it might be, but I just try and be a good person, treat people how I want to be treated, right? And with respect. And I think I'm more live by the values which my parents taught me, whether that's the value of money or the value of respect for authority, those kind of things, rather than the religious thing. But I think if I look at it subconsciously, I mean, I don't have any religious relics up in my house or anything, but you know, I like crucifix. I might wear a crucifix. Don't know why, I just like them. You know, I've got a religious tattoo on my back. I've just got a Celtic cross. But if you look at my brother and sister, who are not Catholic, who are not religious either, obviously they're Catholic, were brought up Catholic, but they've got religious tattoos on their body as well. But it's not a conscious thing of I need to get that because it's Catholic. It's more, I guess, it's just ingrained in us. I think.
Yeah,
I think it's always going to be there somewhere.
yeah, I think that's where I was just going. That's all. And just seeing how you still kind of
Hmm.
like incorporate the term. Really, if you look at it, and you rightly said that at the end of the day, as long as whatever we believe or we don't believe, as long as you know we're being a good person, we're being honest to
Yeah.
ourselves and to others, we can do what we want and believe in as many different things as we want. You know, and that's what I'm
Absolutely.
just trying to say. You know, this is why I just wanted to bring it back. Do you still follow any kind of your faith? But you know, you kind of answered it really well. Really, the best faith you can follow is the one, or the best advice and teachings you can follow are the ones of what your excuse me, your parents teach you. You know,
Absolutely.
so you know you've kind of answered that there. You brought in the your brother and your sister and your siblings there. So
Yeah.
do they accept? I know you talked about your mum, who's just kind of like supportive in everything that you do. You know, and that's lovely. But do your other family, like your brother and your sister, do they kind of think, oh God, what's our David up to? Or do you know, or do they support you and say, oh, you know, that's interesting. Can you tell me something?
They're both very different. So
Okay.
my brother has always his I get it, how do I put him? I guess he believes what he believes, right? Let's put it that way. And I remember when I was talking to my dad about it once at dinner, my brother was there. And my dad says to him, "What do you think about all this?" And my brother was like, "Oh, it's a load of old tosh, isn't it?" But that's just my brother, right? So well, um, but so he doesn't talk to me about it. He doesn't ask me about it, but I'm happy with that. And again, you believe what you believe in. I don't really mind. But my sister, she will, I wasn't my PA because she'll go out. So, David, my friend wants a reading. How much is it? How do you do it? So she gets her friends rounded up as well because they're all on a reading. So my sister's more open to it. I mean, she's read my book where my brother he wouldn't touch that. It's just not him, if that makes sense. So, and that's all right. I don't mind. But but again, he's not. He doesn't follow through on his Catholicism either. So I guess we've all done the same thing. Well, none of us go to church at all. But then we've all got those kind of religious inkings on our body. Again, I guess it's just ingrained in us from a young age that foundation belief in God, I guess. But
Even
so
though
yeah,
you,
they're very different.
yeah, even though your brother doesn't, and that he's rightly. I mean, my granddad, he saw so many different things, especially obviously he lived with my grandma, who was very spiritual and very mediumistic. And he saw things where he just wouldn't answer. You know,
Yeah,
well, you were there and you saw that. When you're dead, you're dead. You know,
yeah,
he had that kind of, you know, and that was fair, even though I don't say he didn't want to admit it, but it
yeah,
just wasn't for him, you know, and
yeah,
maybe that's just what your brother is, but I'm sure he still supports you and still, you know, and your sister there does all the work for you by getting all the mates, you know, and that's good that you've got that support around you as well, because many mediums haven't. And I said
yeah,
quite a few times, you know, when you do this job, and I know this from experience, one of the ways it will work the best is when you've got a supportive network around you. You
completely.
know,
Yeah,
I mean, my partner now, she's turning around because we're in the middle of lockdown, and she just turning around going, "When are you back on the road? You're doing my, you know, I spent a year with you. When you going out? You know, when can I have the bed back to myself?" Um, so I don't know if she's supporting me or she just can't stand me and just wants me at the house. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to say she supports me, but it's having that supportive network there. But you're lucky
yeah,
to have that, especially from your parents, especially from your family. Your brother, in his own way, it's just not
yeah,
him, which is
yeah.
fine. I think I remember when we've spoken before, and I think I remember at some point you tell me about was it your auntie or someone, and they ask, "Oh, they've seen things." Am I right? Or someone's seen things, and they're saying, "Oh, David, what was that?"
Yeah, yeah. So it's because they'll talk about the family. When I first started developing, I didn't tell anyone because I thought they'll probably think I've
Hmm.
lost the plot or something, or also another fad. So I didn't tell anyone to start with. But when I started developing more and more, my cousins would message me and say, "I hear you doing this, and I've experienced this. What does it mean?" Or my aunts would say, "Have you heard from this person?" So it doesn't really work like that, but no, in a nice way. So it's nice that actually it's opened up a conversation with my wider family. So all my family in Ireland, who've recently discovered, because God knows how many cousins we've got out there, but they've also come to me with, now what's this? So here's a photo, and there's lots of orbs. Are these orbs that I'm seeing, or what's this? So that it actually, you see that actually underneath it, most of my family have been spiritual or had a spiritual thinking for a long time, but no one's ever talked about it until someone in the family, again, like me, I don't do anything like that everyone else does. I do things that people don't do. So to have that person say, "Oh, my cousin's a medium," you know, and then whatever, they all suddenly come out and go, "Right, what's this? What's this? I want a reading. Can you do it?" So it's nice. It's opened a conversation actually. And before my granddad dad, yeah, before my granddad died, actually, and again, it's the Irish, my nan and my granddad, the Irish couple. And come back to faith and how, you know, faith can change your beliefs and stuff. They were very, obviously very Catholic. They did the whole Lourdes trips, you know, the church trips to Lourdes and all that business. That when my uncle died in 90, I think it was 98, which that was their only son, and they lived across the road from it. So when he died, they completely lost their faith. And I believe they stopped going to church as well, because how can God take my only son and all that business? But my granddad used, on the sly, my aunt used to go to spiritualist churches where she lived in Kent. And my granddad knew about it, but he would say to her, "Have you heard from Frank today?" Without my nan hearing. So it's funny how sometimes, you know, your faith can change, even when it's not necessarily supposed to, how those kind of life events as well can get people talking and opening up to something else. And that's what I really like, actually, is that they do come to me and they ask questions, because, you know, it's not all about reading them, it's about also educating and hopefully opening their minds as well. It's that, you know, they're not far away, they're just next door, if you want to call it like that.
I know from experience, and you probably do as well, David, where, you know, you'll get a bunch of people, whether they're male or female, oh, load of rubbish, and then one by one, when nobody else is around, oh, this happened to me, what do you think? Or, oh,
yeah,
tell me about that. And maybe that was your grandfather's way of not necessarily admitting it, but also just wanting to know that his son was okay, and, you know,
exactly,
he had that belief somewhere, but he couldn't openly acknowledge it. You know, you mentioned just before as well, referring to you've written a book, and can you just tell us, is that what we're talking about now? Is that your life? Is it something about something different? What's the book about?
So it's about my development, really. It's not an autobiography at all, really, but it's got obviously real examples in it of my development, and it doesn't touch on anything personal apart from the spiritual stuff, if that makes sense. So that's the only connection to my own life, is when if it touches on the spiritual aspect of my development. And I kind of wrote it for other mediums, or no, sort of budding mediums, newer up and coming mediums, because I'm very fully aware that, you know, developing it takes work, it takes dedication, it takes patience, it takes time, and actually it's not always easy. And I think out there are so many, and with respect, there's lots of airy fairy development books, or here's 5 stages to becoming a medium, and it's not like that at all, right? As you know, it's there's a lot of times you doubt yourself, or you experience things and that can't be, it must be my imagination. And I want to put all that in there, and again, it's based on my own personal journey. So it's not a book to convert people or convince people, because that's not what I'm here to do, right? It's not my job. But if it opens people's minds, or just gets people connecting to things that they've also experienced, they can read that book and say, it's not just me then, it's other people have experienced that. So as well as newer mediums picking up and having something to relate to, it's also people that are just interested in spirituality in general, because people ask me all the time, you know, what happens when you pass over, or if somebody takes their own life, are they in hell? And no. So it's just my opinions on my spiritual journey, or no, mediumship, or the spirit world in general, from my point of view. And just people laughed at it because it's quite down to earth, I have to say. It's got there is a bit of bad language in it, but that's me. That's who I am, right? I think people think if you're a spiritual person, you're always, you know, love and light, and you mustn't swear. No, I do. That's who I am, right? So the book's quite down to earth and honest, and people are saying it's funny because you've got to laugh sometimes, and sometimes during this journey you have to laugh. If you don't, you'll cry. So you've got to, you know.
It's just a journey on your spiritual, which is good, because, as you say, it's not just one of the old autobiographies what everybody's done, you know. And I know you can get that on Amazon, and we'll put the details shortly of where you can get hold of your book and what it's called, and that will. But just before we go on to that bit, so we know you do private readings. You're available for private readings, and we also know. Do you do demonstrations as well? Have you worked in front of an audiences? Have you worked in the churches and done more public work?
So I'm I'm building up to that. So as I say, my development is a continuation. I've not been doing it very long, right? But it's a continuation. So yeah, private readings. I have done open platform in my church, which sadly is currently closed because of COVID, so we can't do anything about it. But I was getting to a point before the church closed, I was doing open platform more and more, but because the church suddenly closed, it put a halt on that. So I use my Facebook platform to do those kind of demonstrations or talks or whatever on that page. So that for me is something to come. That's what I said earlier about the patience and the timing. So I'm trying to, I'm one of these people, I'm quite impatient. And when I've got something in my head that I want to do, I kind of want to do it, but I'm kind of taking step by step. I'm doing chakra master classes as well. So I'm doing a little bit of teaching on the side as well to do with that kind of stuff. But so yeah, I'm a continuation of, I don't know, keep it going.
One thing I say is, and I don't know if you agree or not, but one thing I always say, and especially to my students over the years, is sometimes people turn around and say, "Oh, you can do this," and they rush into it without actually understanding the mechanics of mediumship and how it works and responsibility. And I'm not saying this for you at all. I'm just saying where I'm going with it is also it takes a lot of dedication to do it. And I always say, again, this is my views, not directed to you, but just so people are aware as well, if they're thinking about going into this work. I always say there's complete differences, and I know this for fact, from being a private reading medium, from being a church medium, to being a public theatre medium. They're all different. You'll find each and every one of them completely different situations. And I've been lucky to do, well, I do all of them now. But when you go out into, shall we say, more of a public arena, more of a commercial arena, and again, I've been speaking to someone on the podcast about this, you become yourself. You know, where the churches are great, and obviously the spiritual churches, they are a religion, and they've got to be respected for the religion. But sometimes, and not because you're going to be rude to anybody, or not because you're going to, insult anybody or swear or anything like that, but you are respectful of being in a church as a medium. And sometimes people are trained like that, and then when they take the next step into a theatre or into a social club, or it's kind of completely different, because you can't go in there with that, love and light, as we say. So it is a difference, and I'm sure when you take that journey, you'll discover that yourself, and I'm sure you'll overcome it and you'll find it. But I tell this to all my students, just be careful when you do that. Not everything is yours. You know what I mean? You're meant to be reading me. Just stick at what you know. If you're meant to be a reading, just stick at what you know. So this is what you were saying before about people going too fast as well, and not staying grounded and getting the mechanics behind it. So when because at the moment we're all in lockdown, and we're during this pandemic of COVID. So when we get out of this, where do you then see yourself going in your mediumship work? Do you see yourself doing more private work readings, or do you see yourself doing more church, venturing out onto more the commercial side, if you want to call it that? Where do you see your mediumship going from now forward?
My one of my I guess goal, if you want to call it a goal, is to do more platform work. I think for me, I can do it, but it's a confidence thing for me. And so there's such a difference between being in the comfort of your own home on a private reading, can be yourself and do what you want, right? Obviously to a point. But then going out into an audience is a very different dynamic, and that's something I'm working towards. That's kind of what I want to do. It's not, I don't think it's going to happen yet, but that's one of the plans. For the church point of view, and sadly for our church, it had to close because of it being refurbed and whatever else. So my church probably is not going to open for another 2 years or so. If we get planning stuff going through, we don't know yet. So that kind of puts a halt on that a little bit, and there's not many other churches around here for me. So it's a continuation of my own self-development, do more. I mean, most stuff's online nowadays anyway, but I never wanted to be or want to be like an online medium, if you know what I mean. Because you get a lot of them out there on Facebook, and I want to step away from the computer. I guess that's probably the main goal, to step away from the computer, right, and get out there with the people is probably my main goal overall, I would say, for the moment.
I mean, it is amazing when you've got like, and also scary at times when you've got like 200-300 people looking at you,
Yeah.
and they're expecting of you, but I'm sure you'll overcome that because you seem quite confident in yourself anyway. And it takes a confident person, not an arrogant person or an egotistical person, but a confident person, to be able to believe in what you're doing, and show that way. So just as I'm asking everybody here, while I'm doing this podcast, what's your best experience and what's your worst experience?
Let's get the worst one out of the way first. Let's talk about that one first. I think for me, it's all, if we speak in general terms, it's always that, especially at the beginning, the self-doubt, and you kind of psych yourself out and you go, oh my God, I can't do this, and it's my imagination, and what if I don't get anything through? So it's probably, those are probably the worst times. I think, to put it, let's make it more specific, because there was a point a couple of years ago where I was doing some readings, and I was like, I'm not good enough. Why am I not seeing that? Why am I not getting enough information come through? And it's those moments you go, am I really doing this? Am I really a medium? And then I remember having a conversation with our friend Craig, right? And he brought that light bulb moment in, which was that your ability is shifting. I think I was at a point where my ability was shifting and I wasn't paying attention to it, because I was so used to being clairvoyant and seeing things. I wasn't paying attention to what spirit were telling me or making me feel. So I thought at the end of a reading, I was really rubbish because I wasn't given as much as I normally would. But actually, they were giving it to me in a different way. So that panicked me a little bit. So that's probably when I felt a little bit at my worst. Like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Do you know what I mean? So that's probably the worst. The best experience, I think, is when I first realized that I could communicate with spirit. And that was during my first ever face-to-face reading of somebody outside of a development circle. It's a real person. And that was 2017 on Halloween, actually. And it was my guinea pig. And I didn't know if I said to him, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm going to get anything through. I've got no idea what's happening. But then reading happened, and it was that moment you could see the relief that he had on his face, where I connected somehow, I say somehow, to his nana and his aunt in spirit, and took what I said. And it was that point I went, oh, maybe I've just proved to myself that I can do it. So that's probably the best experience, and just seeing the relief in his face. And he called his mum in Spain, and they're having a fabulous time on the phone, crying to each other. They're all right. And it's that moment you think, that's why I'm doing this, because of that reaction that he had. So that's probably the best one.
That's nice when that happens as well, when you see the message being taken. So just before we come to the end, David, we talked about your book. So where can people find your book? Where can people book you for a reading if they want to book you for a reading? And can people get in contact with you?
So the book's available on Amazon, so all Amazon platforms, in the Kindle version or paperback version. And if people want to book me, they can either go to my Facebook page, and I'm on David H Psychic Medium, or my website is www.davidhmedium.co.uk. So a couple of ways there.
Wait, just to we misstate there, David, can you just give us the name of the book so people know what they're looking for?
Oh, sorry, yeah, the book's called Coming Down to Earth.
Coming Down to Earth by David Hale. Brilliant. David, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this afternoon. Thank you for being on the Psychic Chat Show. Hopefully we'll get together again soon and you come along and talk to us again about your journey. But can I just say at the moment, David, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks, Gareth.